what I'm really looking for is what was that failure and what was your big learning experience from that? Because again, I think this is super beneficial for people to be able to hear this stuff from people like you that have been through it. Because maybe this is something they hear that helps, start their own Roo Troop or whatever it may be.
Yeah, there's a couple things, but I think probably the most relatable one, which I don't hear a lot of people talk about, is, and it's ironic because I feel like both myself and our team were among the more selective individuals um, in talking in terms of partnerships. And we fucked up on that front a couple times.
Yeah.
Like, we'll own it. You know, one, there's two sides of it. One, not getting legal agreements in place with partners to establish terms and hold them to those terms
Yeah.
was a fuck up on our part. The second was just diving too deep into partnerships that didn't necessarily call for it or benefit us too well, and actually ended up harming us. And so I'm not going to speak on specifics, individuals, whatnot. You guys can read in between the lines, but you know, forming a partnership in Web3, it doesn't just affect you and your company, it also affects your community
Hmm.
because there's this big sense of cross pollinating whenever you form a partnership. And I'm not talking about collaborations, whitelist collabs, spaces, all that. I'm talking about real partnerships and value adds and utility trade offs.
Right.
The way we view it is it's going to be long term. It's going to be very cross pollinated. We're going to get on a bunch of marketing activations together. We're going to, build in traits from each other's collections and do our sub collections. We're going to do all this crazy branding stuff together. And what happens then is people start buying into those other projects as you form the partnership because they look up to you as the founder of the project they're already involved in. They're like, oh, well, they're co signing this. Then I'm going to go buy it because they co sign it. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just get screwed. Sometimes things happen that you had no idea were going to happen. Other times you look back and you see a bunch of red flags that you're like, oh, fuck. Like, maybe we should have done things a little differently here. So, I would definitely say we fucked up on a couple partnerships so far. And, those no longer exist. But they impacted more than just us and our company. They did impact us and our company pretty heavily, but they also impacted our community who was
Right.
maybe spending funds that they don't really have much to spend on, these other projects, and then things happen with those other projects. So it's really, be careful, get legal agreements in place and vet these people, figure out who the fuck they are, what their goals are, what makes them tick, and why they're doing what they're doing in their projects, and explore all the different avenues that could turn into.
Right.
Could it turn into be the best partnership ever? Could it turn into just a mediocre one? Could it turn into be real shit? And why could it be real shit? And what's the impact if it does become real shit? Does
Yep.
that come back to you? And
Yep.
so just looking out for your community in the sense of forming partnerships that will protect them and not harm them.
Dude, I love the insight and I love things to look out for. I think especially in this space, people are so hot to shake hands and we'll figure out the rest later. And official documentation, legal agreements, all of those things that traditional businesses do. Hence why things take so long in the normal world because you have to put these guardrails in place don't really exist here yet, and they will. The trust, the FTX debacle is going to put regs in place because billions of dollars have been lost. And apparently not accounted for too. I think I read there's just been some money disappear as well, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's the reality of the situation, especially when you're talking about two massive things that people will never be able to get over, which is ego and money, right? And
Yep.
when we talk about those two things, people do shitty things. And you have to put, listen, my wife's a lawyer. So said that I am the risk taker. She's the risk adverse, and that's probably our biggest arguments we have. But it is a necessary evil in my mind to me because it's a hindrance and just takes more time to do it properly.
For sure.
So love that insight, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you sharing that.
and
Maddie, any thoughts?
well, there's a little bit of irony there. So what I heard you basically say is you should actually vet and check somebody's resume is what I heard.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super ironic, right? I mean,
Yeah,
issue
and
exists.
but here's the thing, it's a lesson learned, and that's business. And to Mike's point, you were willing to take a chance, right? And I think that that's important for people to understand is that like you have to get out there and you have to make these mistakes and learn. You did, and here's what's cool. Now you are checking those things when it comes to those partnerships because you are keenly aware of what can happen if you don't. And so I just think that these are the things that build. And when you see somebody who's a successful entrepreneur and they're 40, 50, 60 years old, right? And they've been running a business, and you're going to be in a really unique spot because you're in your mid 20s and you're starting this now. By the time you're our age, you're going to be a freaking wizard at all of this stuff. And people will see, here's what happens. People think you're just a natural. uh, you just fell off a log and you knew all these things. But they don't understand it's because you've had all of these bumps and bruises along the road. And these are the scars that you're learning from that have put you in a position to know, wait a second, I need to be careful here, or I need to be hesitant here, or maybe a little caution is advised here, or a little risk is advised here. And I think that that's an important thing for people to understand. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's absolutely part of the process.